The weak and helpless Balkan fleet was easy prey for the cruel Threne warriors, who tore it apart like a Zon beast rips a newborn Balkan larva apart. He tried to block out the harsh truth as he lay in his bunk on the crowded Balkan starship with one arm over his eye stalks. Things were not going well in the war, really badly. In just 3 years, the Threne destroyed a dozen Balkan colonies by flooding their birthing pools with plasma fire and destroying defenseless larvae. They also turned Balkan towns into slag. No matter what, Murlock's ship and the rest of the defense force were no match for them. The Threne ships were bigger, faster, better armed, and had more defense. People in the Balkans were dying in terrible pain, but they had to keep running away. Carvel, Murlock's wingmate, slouched down in the bunk next to him and let out a sorry sigh. Another group died. Millions of dead. The eye stalks of Carvel hung down. This can't keep going. At this rate, we'll be dead in 10 years. It was Murlock who clenched his teeth. He knew of only one small chance for his species to survive, and the leaders of the Balkans thought it was crazy and would kill them. Murlock clicked. The people were right. They told us about the three and offered to help. Are you crazy? Kavar all made a noise. People who are crazy. Do you really want to bring those mass murderers here now, when our world is about to fall apart? They are going to cut our throats and drink our blood. Warning klaxons went off all over the ship, which made Murlock's heart beat fast. That's right, the Threne found them again. Now this small fleet is the last line of defense for the Balkan homeworld. Murlock knew he had to make a terrible decision. He could either be killed by the Threne or call on the humans, who were the only crazy fighters who could help them win the war. The first people to go to the stars hundreds of years ago were filled with awe at the opportunities that lay ahead. It was like a dream to be a part of a galactic community and be seen as a highly developed society. The humans stood tall and proud in the grand hall of the Galactic Assembly, their chests puffed out with pride as they showed off their latest technological advances. They talked about how well they knew how to use fusion power, how sleek their starships were, how they could travel between stars, and how their eye was so smart that it could solve anything in an instant. But as soon as the human minister was done speaking, the Dolan representative laughed in jest. The short alien with 3 eyes waddled up to the group of humans, his face contorted into a sneer. You think we like your little toys? The Dolan laughed, and his voice was full of disdain. There are 1,000 species just like you that think they're unique because they can build a few fancy ships. But people, let me tell you something. In this galaxy, resources are the only things that count. From what we've seen, your little planet is full to the brim with them. The humans in the group stood there in stunned silence, and as the Dolan's words hit home, they became less excited. But they weren't going to let this defeat bring them down. They would show the galaxy that they were more than just a place to get supplies. So people started making trade deals with different alien species, offering their high-tech goods in return for the materials those species needed to keep exploring the stars. They went up to the Dolans and wanted to work together in a way that would be good for both of them. But the Dolans had other ideas. Within months, they had snatched millions of tons of Earth's resources, leaving whole areas empty without even a word of notice. The Dolan just laughed in the faces of the humans when they spoke out against them. People, take this as a lesson. The Dolan representative laughed. You either get paid up front or you don't get anything at all in this world. The humans were furious, but they wouldn't let this defeat define who they were. They would find other people to work with who would respect them and be their friends. So, when the Selene Empire invited 100,000 humans to move to their planet as guests, the humans jumped at the chance. They were excited to start a new part of their trip through space when they got on the Selene ships. But when the humans got to the Selene homeworld, they were met by armed guards all around them. They were stripped of their belongings, crammed into dirty, crowded barracks, and made to work in the Slinans' harsh work camps. The people were shocked and angry. They asked to talk to the Slin leaders to talk about getting their people freed, but the Slin just laughed at them. People, the Slinan Emperor said, you are now our property, and we will do with you what we please. The people refused to accept this. They made a daring effort to escape by fighting their way out of the work camps and taking over a transport ship that had been shot down. As they tried to get back to Earth, though, a fleet of Slian battleships stopped them. The Slien fired 100,000 Viridian missiles at the human ship. Each missile was aimed at a big city on Earth with a lot of people. The humans were scared as they saw the rockets speeding toward their homeworld. They knew they couldn't stop them. When the Viridium rockets went off in the sky above Earth's cities, they spread a terrible disease that made millions of people writhe in pain. It burned through skin and bone, leaving its victims with nothing but charred shells. Once the fight was over, the Jandis Collective went up to the humans and offered to help us. They said they knew how to stop the Viridian plague and had a medicine that could heal the cuts and make the people who had it healthy again. The humans were in a desperate state, so they gladly took Jandis up on her offer. The doctors on Jandis worked non-stop to treat the people who had taken Viridium and gave their magic cure to everyone who needed it. The medicine seemed to work at first. The burns from the Viridium started to get better, and the patients got stronger again. The people were starting to think that the worst was over, but then the patients started to die. At first there were only a few cases, but soon the deaths were happening all over the place. The Jandis cure crushed the patients' bodies, turning their organs into liquids and leaving them as sacks of bones and skin. They writhed in pain as it did this. When the humans found out the truth, they were terrified. The Jandists never meant to get rid of the Viridian plague. Instead, they used the people as test subjects for a new bioweapon, a virus that was even more dangerous than the Viridium. People were done being polite. They were robbed blind by the Dolans, forced to work as slaves by the Selene, and used as test subjects by the Jandis. Earth's radio silence stopped all contact with the rest of the galaxy. The different alien races thought it was people, so they hid their tails between their legs. The story of the strangers who were put in their place quickly spread across the galaxy. Late-night humor shows made fun of how trusting people are. Memes making fun of them were all over social media, and the line "dumb as a human" became common. When they talked about the stupid people who thought they could swim with the sharks, even serious news reporters couldn't help but laugh. Earth was the punchline of every joke for 2 years. Then, without notice, communication between people started up again to send one scary message. "We were happy to have you here. It's okay that some of you laugh at us, but if you lied to us, this is your only chance to say sorry. Run." The transmission stopped quickly, leaving the galaxy in a state of confusion. Surely this was the sad way that people tried to save face. The galactic powers had already quickly wiped out the primitives. What could they do to fight back? Most of the animals thought that the humans were lying. They were telling the truth. Behind closed doors, the smartest people in the world had been working non-stop to reverse engineer the advanced alien technology that was being used against them. These days, pirated alien weapons and fake Jandis science were on human ships. People were about to show the galaxy what they could really do because they were angry and wanted to get even. The Selene were the first ones to find out the hard way. In a devastating surprise attack, human vessels appeared in the skies of the 7 dead core worlds and launched a huge barrage of improved Viridium missiles. The projectiles hit the worlds and set fire to their atmospheres, creating apocalyptic firestorms that could be seen from space. As the air burned, towns turned into inferno zones. Millions of innocent civilians were killed right away within 1,000 miles of each impact spot. Those who lived through the first blasts quickly died from the poisonous fumes that filled the destroyed worlds. The crown jewels of the Selene Empire were turned into lifeless husks in just a few hours. The attack shocked the galaxy, but most people thought it was just a coincidence. People were lucky because they caught the dead while they were not paying attention. It couldn't or wouldn't happen again. The Jandis were sure that their walls could not be broken through. When the first Jandis started to rot alive, that trust went away. At first it was just small patches of dead skin, but soon, people with jaundice were horrified as their body parts fell off down to the bone. Jandis's doctors were working hard to find out what was causing the terrible illness. They were completely shocked by what they found. The humans mixed the Jandis bioweapon that was used against them with leprosy, a disease that people have. This mutant superplague quickly and efficiently ate its victims from the inside out. Quarantines didn't work. As the rot spread, Jandis space turned into a cemetery as whole worlds were eaten up. It was now the turn of the Dolans to shake. The species that laughed at humanity's cries for help now bowed down before Earth and begged for forgiveness. They said they were sorry for stealing and offered to pay back twice as much as they took. When the human boats showed up on Skis, they were still groveling. In minutes, the Dolan homeworld, that shining city that had stood for thousands of years, turned into molten slag. The once powerful Dolan army didn't even have a chance to fight back. Human beams and rockets tore right through their shells like paper cuts. In their last message to the galaxy, people made it clear where they stood. No one could go into human space. Any ship that came close would be destroyed right away, no matter how peaceful its goals were. There was a line that said, "Stay away or die." The other stellar powers were furious at how cocky the new humans were. Who were they to tell the older races what to do? A big alliance was made, and a huge fleet of ships was put together to put Earth back where it belonged. Thousands of ships, representing the best of 12-star empires, sailed into human land to teach the barbarians a lesson. Not a single ship came back. Fire from weapons was picked up by long-range sensors, which then recorded eerie quiet. Probes sent to look into the matter found only clouds of moving garbage. The galaxy's strongest force had just disappeared. The area around Earth was a no-man's land for hundreds of years. Species that tried to ignore the humans' warning quickly learned it wasn't a joke. Any ship that got too close to the line, whether it was a civilian freighter or a military patrol, had its engines turned off by an unknown technology. Not long after, it would be destroyed by precise human strikes, leaving no survivors. The galaxy made a monster that just wanted to be left alone for all time. Murloc stared out the window of his bunk, his eyes wandering. He couldn't take his mind off of how bad things were for his species. The Threen were cruel and persistent, and it looked like they were determined to wipe the Balkans off the face of the galaxy. What did the other races do while Murloc's people were being killed off one by one? There's nothing. Not a single thing. Everyone else in this galaxy just sits there and watches us die slowly. At the hands of the Threen, Murloc thought out loud. His voice was a mix of sadness and anger. They don't do anything. It would be better for everyone if you left us alone. He couldn't finish what he was saying because a crazy thought hit him like a lightning bolt. It would be better for us if we were people. Cavall, who had been messing around with a broken data pad, snapped his eye stalks up and stared at Murloc with shock. Murloc, have you gone crazy? The humans are crazy people who want to be alone and don't ask questions after the fact. You want us to behave like they do. But Murloc barely heard his wingman making fun of him. He had a thought that was like a seed, and it was already growing into a desperate and dangerous plan. The next morning, Murloc was in the pilot's seat of his one-man Balkan fighter. His manipulator fingers were flying over the controls as he planned a route that no one had dared to take in hundreds of years, a straight flight into human space. Cavall's jaws were almost on the ground when Murdoch told him what he was going to do. You're killing yourself, Murdoch. Not a single person who goes into human land comes back. Not anyone. But Murloc was set on what he wanted to do. If everyone else in the galaxy was okay with killing people in the Balkans, it might be time to talk to the species that told everyone else to screw off. Murdoc's small ship hurtled through the void for weeks, with auto-assist keeping it on track while he limited the food he had left. Just as he was beginning to think that he might have been very wrong about where human space was, his ship's engines stopped working all of a sudden, leaving him floating in eerie silence. Murdoc's eyes jerked to his instrument panel in fear, but the readings showed that everything was working as it should. It wasn't like the ship was broken when it lost power. When Murloc realized what had happened, he got a chill down his spine. It had to be the humans, since they are known for being able to disable any ship that comes close to their area. In his haste, Murloc turned on the ship's communicator and started broadcasting on all channels, but his words were jumbled and hard to understand. If any people are listening, my name is Murloc. I am a Balkan, and the Threen are destroying my people. We need any kind of help. I came here to understand why you turned away from the galaxy after what happened. I understand, but please don't let a whole species die because some people are mean. Murloc begged, but the comm unit didn't answer. It was like they were making fun of his despair. Hours went by with no answer, and there was no sign that anyone had heard him yell for help. Murloc's hopelessness and rage turned into white-hot anger when something snapped inside him. When his manipulator finger closed around the sidearm's grip, the gun felt very heavy on his hip. He drew the gun and fired straight at the broken FTL drive on his own ship in one smooth move. The drive blew up, sending sparks and pieces of metal flying everywhere. The blast shook the small ship. Murdoch had just ruined the only way he could get away, leaving himself open to attack by humans. But he didn't care at all. In order for people to kill him, they would have to do it in person. He wasn't going to die a cowardly death by himself in a space that didn't care. Murloc put the transceiver back on his mandibles. His voice was shaking with anger and pain. "Do you want this?" He screamed into the empty space. "Do you need me to beg? To kneel? I'm not going to do it. Do you hear me, people? I'm not going to. If you're going to kill me, you should kill me in front of me." After what seemed like an age, there was nothing but silence. Murdoc's heart was racing. His manipulator fingers twitched, making him want to reach for his sidearm, but he knew it wouldn't help. He would be a burning pile of carapace by now if people wanted him dead. All of a sudden, his ship jerked, and the inertial dampener was fighting to keep up as an unseen force grabbed it. Murlock's eye stalks turned all over the place as he tried to figure out what was going on. His ship was being pulled towards something huge. As Murlock's ship was swallowed by the huge field of a docking bay, he felt his jaws loosen up. The human ship was so huge that it was easily bigger than the strongest boats in the Balkans. Its hull seemed to go on forever, with protection and gun emplacements that seemed to be everywhere. He had just about locked his ship into place when the door hissed open. People in armor, with their faces hidden by clear visors, charged into his ship. Murlock was grabbed by rough hands and dragged down the umbilical hallway after being pulled out of his pilot's chair. Murlock woke up in a dark, empty room and was pushed into a chair that was bolted to the floor. The guards made their way to the door and stood there with their guns pointed at him. And then they waited. The hours went by slowly. Murlock was so tired that his eye stalks were drooping, his throat was dry, and his carapace was itchy. The people still didn't say or do anything. They looked like statues too. The door hissed open just as Murlock was beginning to think that they might have just planned to leave him here to rot. A human officer walked in. His uniform was clean, and the medals on his chest sparkled. He was big and scary, and his eyes were hard to read. "Talk," the police officer yelled. "What brings you here?" Before Murlock could speak, his jaws worked for a moment without making any noise. The words spilled out of him a desperate torrent. He talked about how the Theron kept moving forward, how worlds were burning, and how people were being killed. He talked about the Balkan fleets, which were always outclassed and outgunned, and had to idly watch as their people were killed one by one. "Please," Murlock begged, but his voice was shaking. "We need any kind of help. All of you species need to understand how bad it is for a galaxy to do nothing while it watches people die." The human cop didn't show any emotion. "We no longer care about what's going on in the galaxy. It's not our war, but yours." It seemed like Murlock broke. Rage that was white-hot and filled him up rushed through him. As soon as the guns were trained on him, he jumped to his feet and charged. Murlock screamed, "You liars. You blame the galaxy for not doing anything, but you do the same thing. You know what it's like to be betrayed and to see your people suffer and die while other people make fun of you. What makes you different from the people who hurt you in the past?" As soon as the human guards saw him, they slammed him back into the chair with their metal gauntlets. Murlock struggled, but their grip was implacable. He watched without reacting, and his face was covered so that no one could see it. The cop told him straight out, "Go to jail. This is it." As Murlock sat in his cell, the days passed quickly. The quiet was broken only by the clank of the meal tray being pushed through the door's slot. The four metal walls seemed to close in on him. Murlock picked at the strange food because he was no longer hungry. At first he was furious and yelled and hit the door hard until his throat hurt. Then he begged and pleaded with the guards, who were not moving. He finally just sat there and stared at the walls. His hope was fading like blood from a cut. He did not succeed. The people wouldn't help. He tried something desperate, but it didn't work. After the fall of the Balkans, he would spend his last days in this cell, forgotten and unremembered. When the sound of the cell door opening woke Murlock up from his angry thought. When he looked up, he was bored and thought he would see the regular guard eating. He was instead dragged down the hallway and made to stand up. He was taken to a big, dimly lit room that was very different from the empty questioning room. One wall was taken up by a huge viewport that showed a star field with blue lines that showed FTL flight. And there, against the stars, was a figure that Murlock knew from the intelligence briefings, the human ship's leader. The captain looked around and saw Murlock's. He just stared for a long time, and his face couldn't be read. He then spoke. The captain said, "Your words have caused quite a stir among my crew. Many of them have been keeping an eye on the Threne's progress and arguing about whether our policy of not getting involved is smart." Murlock didn't say anything and barely took a breath. The captain went on, "We've made a choice. A task group of volunteers will be sent to help with the war in the Balkans. I'll be in charge of it myself." He felt his knees give out. The captain asked, "Do you mean we're going to help you fight the Threne? People need to remember that bad things win when good things don't happen." The trip to Balkan space was very short. Murlock stood on the bridge of the human flagship and was amazed to see the fleet come together. The galaxy had never seen warships like these before. They were loaded with weapons that made the three armadas look like toy ships. The three had no hope. Their advanced weapons turned the Threne's own technology against them as the human fleet tore through their ships like a plasma dart through paper. Murlock watched with a racing heart as the invaders were pushed back, ending what seemed like an unstoppable progress. After that, as the last Threne ship sped off, the humans and the Balkans joined together. There were no big rituals or flowery speeches. There was just a simple agreement and mutual respect that was built during the war. The humans made it clear that this wasn't a step toward rejoining the rest of the galaxy. There was no desire for them to regain their place among the stars when they stepped in. They did what was right. They never talked about that part of their past again. The captain stood next to Murloc as he watched the human fleet get ready to leave. The captain asked, "Tell me, what are you going to do?" Murdoch thought about the question. He said, "I'll go back to my people, help them get back on their feet, and make sure everyone in the galaxy remembers what we learned today." The captain said, "Yes. What does that teach us?" The captain looked into Murloc's eye stalks, that there are different kinds of strength, and that even the most determined species can be swayed by being pushed too far. The humans then left, and their ships disappeared into thin air. I felt a strange mix of feelings as Murloc watched them leave. He felt thankful, respectful, and awed. Since he had seen for himself how foolish it was to underestimate the depths of the human spirit, he was sure that the galaxy would never make that mistake again. The story is now over. Please like and subscribe to our station if you like this story and want to help us out. And I will heart every reply that says 88%. Thanks for your time.